Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I think we'll make a start. Thank you for attending our Thursday sessions today. And hopefully we can have a good discussion on our conversation today, which is exploring and managing stress in the times that we're in. I think in the last few weeks, we've been talking about having difficult conversations. We've been talking about toxic relationships, gender-based violence, and how we can be ambassadors in our communities. So today we are joined by Fiona, who is from Recovery Campus College today, and she's going to help us go through this conversation on stress. I think, as I said from last week, we'll try and tie all the conversations we've had with how stress manifests in our lives. And I think when we face any adversity or bad things happen to us, the resulting thing is mostly that we feel stressed, as a result of any bad thing. I would think that's one of the things that manifests in us. And that's why we thought we need to address also stress as something, that happens, and how aware are we about it. So welcome, Rachel. I've just seen you logging. Thank you. So we have Fiona. Fiona, I'm going to give you a few minutes to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Eva, and a little bit of background on Compass at that point, and then hand back to you. Great. All right. Thanks very much, everybody. My name is Fiona. I work with Compass Recovery College, and I'm absolutely delighted to be invited to join you today to break open the topic of stress, I suppose. As Eva said, it's, stress is, there might be specific situations that require specific things, but there's some general things that we can probably talk about in terms of managing stress and so forth. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about where I'm from and what I'm doing here, because you might be wondering that. So I'm just going to share my screen for a minute and hope that you can see that. Seamless, that was. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. Let me just see if I can, hang on a minute, get that out of the way. And okay, can you see that now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks everyone. So this page looks like a huge advertisement for Compass Recovery College, because there's a massive thing on the right hand side, but really it's the left hand side that we want to be looking at. So apologies for that. How do we go to the next slide on Zoom? There we are. So who we are and why we're here. So Compass Recovery College is not a college as such. Recovery College is a way of working with mental health, to support people with their mental health and well-being. And what that means is that it's about taking mental health support away from the medical environment and making it community-based and educational. And as we like to say, people becoming experts in their own mental health. So the key thing about a recovery college is that people with lived experience of mental health challenges are at the heart of everything that we do, in terms of deciding what we do and then delivering the things that we do. So what we do is we offer free workshops to anybody in Reading or who has an association with Reading who is over 18. You don't need to have a referral, and you don't need to have a diagnosed mental health problem. It's for anybody in the community who wants to learn more about mental health or who wants to work on their mental well-being. And just to say that we are part of Reading Borough Council, and we sit in the public health and well-being team, whose role is about promoting good health generally and preventing poorer health. So we sit in there to try and help out on the mental health side for everyone in Reading. So we have some funding to do some joint sessions with ACRE groups, and we've been doing some of that already with Ashley, who you might have met at another session, and Ashley's now gone on to another job. We're very disappointed about that, but I'm trying to pick up where he left off. So we've got a session today with you, and very delighted to be here to talk about stress, what we experience and what we can do about it. So really, for me, it's about sharing some of our resources that might be helpful, and also really to learn from you what your issues are, or issues in your communities, and how perhaps Compass can be more relevant to you, and increase the offer that we make to people of Reading. So just a little bit on Compass, very briefly. We do 4 kinds of group work. It's all group work. It's not one-to-one, and it's not therapy. So we do mental health workshops, which help people to understand and manage mental health conditions like anxiety or depression, perhaps hearing voices, psychosis, those sorts of things. Often 1 hour a week for 4 weeks or something like that. We do wellbeing workshops. These are often physical things. I've put there mindfulness, yoga, gardening, but could be other things as well. And again, that's just to help us take some time out for ourselves and do something that's going to be nice and gentle, and also maybe a bit social as well. Creative workshops, we know that creativity can help us be more positive in our life and help us with feeling that we've had a sense of achievement, and to help us get in touch with or continue to be in touch with our inner self, and expressing ourselves in a way that might be a bit easier sometimes than talking to other people. And finally, our social sessions, which are on every week. One is a coffee and chat, and one is a walk and a coffee and chat, essentially. There's lots of chatting and a little bit of walking, but yeah, they're drop-in sessions. So every week we've got something on that people can just come to, and often that's a nice way to ease into the recovery college, rather than come to something that is heavier, which might be a bit more challenging for people. And just finally, we have 4 principles we work on. We work very hard to make sure we have a safe space. So we always have 2 or 3 of us there to support the group. And if somebody needs to take some time out, we can support them individually. We're very strong on our code of conduct, which we all sign up to. And every time we meet, we make sure that we go through that, so people in the room are reminded about respecting others' difference, about confidentiality, and so on. As I said earlier, we're free, and anybody can come to Compass who might be struggling with their mental health, or maybe a friend or family member or carer who wants to understand a bit more about their loved one's condition, or maybe just come along with that person to support them, or just to learn about mental health and well-being, or just to come along for their own benefit. So anybody who's over 18 can come along. I think I've said that once or twice, and we're free. We're not a one-to-one service, but we do try to support people on an individual level in terms of identifying what is the right thing for them to come along to at Compass, and make sure it's something that they want to do, and then perhaps signpost them on to other things in Reading that might be helpful, whether that's one-to-one support or another activity that will help them move forward in their recovery journey. And when we talk about recovery, it's not necessarily getting rid of symptoms, but living the best life we can with the challenges that we've got. So it's all about managing our mental health, and tips and strategies for being able to live the best life that we can. Our final principle is together, and this is what I said before about people with lived experience of mental health challenges design and deliver everything that we do. And that's a very important part of our way of working, because when people come along, they might be struggling with their mental health, and they know that someone in the room has been there as well. And it makes everything a bit more relatable, and it also makes it legitimate, if you like, We do have people, we have tutors that we pay to come in, deliver our workshops, who have clinical training or professional training as well. And so we have the lived experience, the professional, the clinical training influencing what we're doing, as well as on-the-job training, which I've done a lot of over the years in various roles, roughly in the same area, supporting people with their mental health. So that's what we do. And this is just a little graphic that we sometimes use. I think it should be in a circle rather than a line. But we all struggle with our mental health at times, and it's a normal part of being human. Very much at Recovery College, we work with people in the coping sort of area, and maybe a bit into the struggling area. But Recovery College is, not for people who are really unwell, because they need probably different type of support, or medical support, or whatever it is. But it can be a circle once they come out of crisis or that more intense problems. They can then start getting healthy again and come back to us and hopefully stay in the sort of yellow and green zone. So there are our contact details. We'll send you a copy of the slides I've used this morning, and all of that is on there. Please feel free to give us a call if you want to talk about anything, or just have a look at what we've got on. We've got that lovely fancy QR code there, which seems to be the modern way of doing everything. And if you've got your phone, you can just hover over that, and that will take you straight to our website. So there you go. Thank you. That's a bit about Compass. Any questions on that? No? Okay. Well, we're going to get into it now, and I've just put there, let's talk about stress. We're going to do some polling and have some discussion about stress from your perspective. So I'm going to hand over back to Eva now, and look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Fiona. Thank you, back. Yeah, thank you for the introduction to Recovery College, what you do, which is really brilliant, and I hope everybody can see the different services that you offer. And it's a pleasure to have you today, because you're going to take us through stress as well today. So welcome everybody who's just joined for Thursday Conversations. Please, as we always do every week, everybody's opinion is respected, and we respect everybody on the call. If anything triggers you on the call, please, we have James, our therapist, who's on the call. Please, you can message him privately, or you can message him privately. And also, as we say, you can always walk away from your computer for a few minutes, but do let us know if anything that we talk about triggers you in such a way and you need any further help. Okay, so as normal, as we normally do with every topic that we have each week, we have a polling system. So I'm going to get Kasia to launch that for me. It was playing up on my computer, so I had to get it sorted. And normally we just give you about 2 minutes to log your answers, and then we can have a brief discussion on stress before we delve into the workshop today. Kasia, are you able to launch that for me? Oh. Can you see the polls on your screens? Okay. That's good. Thank you. So you got 2 minutes to sort of answer the questions, and then we can go through. I'm just going to get Kasia to read through the questions so that everybody is okay. And if you've got any questions about the poll, you can let us know. Kasia, over to you.
Yeah. Right, so the first question on the poll is, how often do you experience stress? And the answer options are 90%, 50%, and 10%. The second question is, do you have ways to reduce stress? And there are 3 responses for this: yes, no, and not sure. And the third question is stress recognized in your community? And there's 3 answers for this again: yes, no, and not sure. So just a couple more seconds. Right, so it looks like I think we've got everyone's responses now. So I'm just going to end the poll, and hopefully Okay, I'm going to share results. Can you see this on your screen? Yeah. Okay, so the first question, let's have a look at the responses. So the question was, how often do you experience stress? And 57% of you said 90%, 43% of you said 50%, and no one said 10%. So if there's anyone that would like to lead the way on answering what their opinions on this question, why they answered the way they did.
Good morning, Good morning, Angelina. I answered yes.
Mhm.
And I think life is a stressor these days.
Yeah.
Everywhere you turn, it's just full of stress. You switch on the radio. It's just the news is stressful.
Mm.
Just to get ready to go to work and do stuff, it is stressful. So I find like stresses in this time and age is stressful.
Yeah.
Life itself is stressful.
You're so right with like the media, the radio and the news and stuff, because they always pick the most like catastrophic, negative news there is, just to kind of shock people, but you never really see like positive messages and news out there. So yeah, that really contributes to the stress we experience. I agree. Yeah, thank you for that. Anyone else? I see Grace nodding. Yeah.
Yeah, anything can be stressful if you don't handle it properly. If you don't put your mind at it and say, look, I'm going to handle it, you can be overwhelmed with whatever you do, even cooking or even cleaning, anything, housework can be stressful if you don't handle it properly. It's a mindset, isn't it? If you don't say, look, I can do this, if you find it overwhelming, you'll be stressed, you'll be flappy. Yeah, I think so. Everything can be stressful. Even, logging on can be stressful. Yesterday, I struggled to log on with the exercise program. And, I didn't enjoy the session because it took everything away from me, So anything can be stressful.
Mm.
Yes, that's what I think.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes.
Hi, Esther.
I just want to agree with what the previous speakers. Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to agree with what the previous speakers have said. I actually said 90%. And the reason why I said that is everything in life, you find things are just stressing you up. You start from your house, you're going to work. Mm-hmm. The roadside closed, they are diverted. That is something that you had not even planned for. You are running late and people are calling you. You just get stressed with almost everything. You go to the supermarkets, the prices have gone up. You go to the petrol station, things are just not really working. And when you look left, right, and center, it just, as Angelina said, life is actually full of stresses. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've just decided to do, I answered the second question. Yes, I have mechanisms in place for me to deal with those stresses. I don't just want to sit on those stresses because they will have a very negative impact on my health and even my performance, because if the roads are closed, they are diverted, there's nothing that I will change. Yeah. I will sit there and wait. So I have decided to remain positive in the stresses and say, anyway, things that I cannot change, I let them just the way they are. But for things that I can change, if there is too much, like if it's housework, if my house is dirty, it's dirty. And if I don't feel like cleaning, I sit, it's my house. I make a choice and sit and say, I'm just going to take that. And if it's really getting tired, I have an allotment. I just walk to my allotment, not even just to work. I just to go around is so therapeutic. I get people, we talk, and that way I come back home really just refreshed. So life is full of stresses, and I think we need to find out what really works well for us, and to see things that we can change them at our own pace, and things that we cannot change, we'll let them go. So I've just decided to be me and not another person. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That's such a good point. And like you've moved on to the second question really well as well. But I really agree with you that like there's so much potential stress that we could experience, and I think it's about I guess a way of reducing that is kind of selecting what we choose to stress about, even though it probably takes a lot of practice to do that, because self-talk can be really harmful. But I think selective kind of like selecting what we decide to stress on is really good point. So moving on to question number 2, Asa kind of started us off on that. I was wondering if anyone had, most of you, 86% said, answered yes to having ways to reduce stress. So, and then 14% of you said no. So I would be really interested in hearing your ways. So Lorraine, you've got your hand up. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Morning, everybody. This morning I woke up and I felt stressed, and I thought, what am I stressed about? I've just opened my eyes, and I decided I was not gonna get out of bed until I deal with it. And I lay in bed. I did certain things. I did some exercise. I did some reading. I listened to some music, and that went on for a while. And then, my body says, now you're ready to get out of bed. And that's what I did. That's how I managed my stress this morning. And as the other said, the truth, stress is all over the place. So it's how we manage it. I refuse to take it on board because it'll only damage my health. And, so I just deal with it the best way I can. But as I said, I deal with it before I get out of bed. Because if I do get out of bed with it, it won't be helpful. So that's how I deal with mine. Thank you.
Thank you. That sounds wonderful. That sounds like such a good way to start the morning.
I could also just say, because I did say I get stressed 90%, but just like the other speakers have said, it all boils down to the choices that you make, how you choose to work out that stress. So I just want to give an example. My week has been quite so busy running up and down. And today, I woke up, I did a few things. Then as I came back from dropping someone to work, my husband to work, I decided, okay, leave the car and just walk. And I just walked all the way into the farms where I live. It's near the farms. And it was so refreshing because all I could hear was birds and there was no one on the road. It's like everybody has decided to stay indoors and I was the only one on the road. It was just so wonderful and calming. And I came home, I came back, I sat in the sunshine for some time. And then I came back, I lay down on my couch here, and then I was just flipping through the phone. That's when I saw this topic. Actually, I didn't even know that it was the Zoom.
Wow.
And then I said, oh, just the right thing. So it's nice that now I can hear what others are talking about that. I think it's also a stress reliever.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing that. Yeah, you're so welcome here. And that sounds like a wonderful, wonderful way to de-stress. That sounds amazing. And yeah, anyone else would like to add to that?
Yeah, I can say about my morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, they're good.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, well, stresses are sometimes. I woke up and one of my twin girls was crying. I was like, it's early in the morning, it's like 6:30. And it's like, yes, because that will not let me have my tablet in the morning. I'm like, you know, but it's also, I think sometimes stress is when it's not, especially when your child is crying in the morning, it kind of grates on you. And it's like, it's not the first thing you want to listen to. And literally you have to wake up and go cuddle her. I had to like really get myself over the fact that she's crying and also go and, give her kind of explain to her why she can't have her tablet in the morning. I think they're getting to that age when they're testing how far mommy and daddy can give into their demands. So kids sometimes can be, stress triggers, I say. And, you either shout, and at some point you find yourself shouting, and like, something's going on here, So they're teaching me about my levels of stress and my levels and my tolerance levels. So yeah, that's a challenge. I've got 2 of them. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Eva. And James, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Kasia and everybody. I think one of the elements I got from everybody really around stress or any of the problem that's been highlighted is about how we all socialize with problems. We all have different orientation to problems. Some of us might consider problems as very impossible. Some of us might consider problem as doable. I can attempt, I can do this. I think from all the discussions I've had, most people are on the other side where they said, hang on, this, I can resolve it. But within any uncertainties as it is today, because somebody mentioned about what's going on through the whole world and the prices, the road network, people digging in your road, and then suddenly you have to divert to places you've never been to. I think it's really about how do we perceive problems. And most people really begin to look at problem as something I can actually resolve. I think they saw options rather than threats. They saw solution rather than difficulties. I think that's really what is key. And within any uncertainties, we look at real problem that we worry about. We also have hypothetical worries as well, problems that don't even exist, but we can worry about them. Things that perhaps will happen in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, we begin to worry about it now. So my suggestion, advice from a CBT point of view is really about focusing on the real problem that you have and try to bring out solutions. And I think a lot of you mentioned it, the lady that dropped the husband to work and then went out and work, and exercise is a big let over for any stress. I think recently or so many years, they've done a lot of work in Harvard University, so even 30-minute walk per day for 5 days can also help you deal with your stress as well, let alone low mood. So it's really important. I think how do you orientate to problem is really important. So let's begin to reflect on that as we go along. How do you perceive problem? Is it something that you think, it's going to overcome me? Or is it something that, hang on, I can tackle this, I can understand, and I can work with this? I think that's really important. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you. Your last point sounded a bit like what Esther mentioned as well. So yeah, really good, really good. Thank you. Okay, and then just moving on to the third question, which was a bit more kind of evened out with everyone's responses. The question was, is stress recognized in your community? And then 43% of you said yes. 29% said of you said no, and then also 29% of you said not sure. So I'd be curious to understand what everyone was thinking.
Can I come in? I struggled to answer the question because I didn't know whether to say yes, and that means that it's actually really well known in my community, and it's not the case, but it's known. But maybe percentage will have worked for me, but I struggled a bit if it's known or not known. I did say it's known, but I think the numbers of those who know about the stress, they've talked about it, it's not a big number. And I'm saying this because I've benefited quite a lot from this Let's Talk conversations on Thursdays, where people talk, where people share their experiences. But there's quite a lot of members in my community who are working, and they don't get to these conversations where they stop, listen, reflect, and act. And so you will find that the free tips that people share, like Angelina said, that, you know, I put everything aside and I went for a walk. And sometimes people may not actually know that the stress reliefs are not expensive. Some of them are actually quite free, where you take a few minutes, you walk, where you take a few minutes, you go to the allotment, where you take a few minutes to have a conversation with the people, where you take a few minutes and share with others. And so I did say yes, but I will have said yes and no if there was that option, where some people know, some people don't know. And I want to say that I think there is quite a need to share this kind of awareness to people, because the world is just increasingly becoming so stressful. Today it's more stressful than it was yesterday. And if that is the case, then people need to know how to relieve their stresses, because I remember in one of the sessions that if you allow these stresses to really pile up, they're going to explode like a bomb. And yet there was something that you will have done with them, just emptying those stress pockets so that at least it doesn't become that crisis. So I will say that there's need of these Let's Talk sessions and make sure that the community, our communities, get to know about these stresses. And sometimes what I've heard in this conversation is like, I'm not alone. When I hear somebody has put things aside and they've gone for a walk, then I hear Sister Lorraine, she couldn't get out of bed this morning until she dealt with the stresses. Then I know that this world, we are all together and we need to remain positive and we need to deal with it. But sometimes we'll run away from our stresses. They will never go away. We need to face them and address them, those that we are able to address. And as I said earlier, the ones that are difficult that you cannot address, just leave them. And in that way, then you can go. And I just want to repeat maybe like if my house is that may seem to be a strange example to give, but I found myself, there are things that I want to do. I'm so tired, I need to rest. The house is dirty, but I still want to do that. And then I came to realize, this is my house, it's not going anywhere. I can actually postpone. I need to listen to what my body is telling me. So these Let's Talk sessions are quite useful, and lots of lessons that I've learned. But we need to educate, create awareness about these stresses to our communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Esther. That was so insightful, so good. I also just had one thing to add to what you said. You mentioned like the body a few times and how like stress piles on. And I feel like, in my opinion, some people might not recognize body ache as stress, or that might they might just be so numb or unaware maybe of the fact that they are actually experiencing so much stress, and that it is causing them like backache or shoulder ache or like any type of ache. I feel like when I get stressed, it gets a lot of in my throat and my back, and I feel like that might be a reason why it kind of might go unrecognized for some people in the community. So I just thought I'd add that, because yeah, you inspired to say that, Esther. Anyone else would like to share their opinion? No? Okay. I shall pass it back to Eva then.
Thank you for that question. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions. Yeah, joys of technology wasn't coming on, but Kasia was very kind enough to go through those with me. So I'm going to invite back Fiona, because we're now going to delve. I think we've talked a lot about stress and shared quite a bit, and yet there's a presentation for us. And I think, as Esther rightfully said, it's getting the conversations out there, the awareness. And even as Kasia just mentioned about, things like you could be aching, but you attribute it to stress, so it's an important topic. So Fiona, shall I pass it back to you?
Sorry. It's nearly as bad as being on mute, isn't it? Possibly worse. Thank you. It was great to hear you speak of your experience and your ideas and your suggestions and views. And a lot of what was said is in the next bit of my presentation. So that's good. And I think that, you've all articulated that in maybe a better way than I have in the presentation. But what we'll do, we'll focus mostly on the managing stress side of it, but I'll just quickly go through the general stuff about what stress is and, how we experience it, how it affects us. But you will get a copy of this, so you can have a look at that first part of it in more detail. But please stop me at any time if you want to ask a question or challenge on anything. That's absolutely fine. I'm going to share my screen now and go back to where we were, hopefully. So, right. There we go. So a quick definition of stress: it's our response to something that we see as a threat, or our body's response, shall we say. And there are things that we sort of look at that are external stresses and things that are internal. And our bodies are initially preparing for the threat that something is going to go wrong. And we've heard probably of the fight, flight and freeze response that is sort of hardwired into us as humans. And this is the activation of our nervous system that gets us ready to ward off danger. So that's why we have some of the increased heart rate and the blood pressure and the dry mouth and so on and so forth. And a little bit of that is fine because it helps us to be aware that something's wrong and to prepare to deal with that. But it's when it doesn't go away and when it is frequent that it can become chronic and be a problem for us. We know that stress affects us in different ways. We just talked briefly about the physical, Kasia, before, but it affects our emotions, it affects our thinking and our ability to function and our behaviour. I know for myself, it's about a clenched jaw and going and sitting in my room. Others might have other examples of different things, but I did go to the dentist once thinking I had a toothache, and actually it was just me clenching my jaw for many hours, and I didn't even realise what was going on. But I'm very aware of it now because it's something that I guess I've learnt really from doing this job. So it affects us in different ways, and trying to be aware of what's going on will help us to work out how to manage it, as somebody said earlier. So this graphic may or may not be something that's useful, but something that we use at Compass, try to understand what our nervous system is doing. The middle zone is when things are going okay and we feel relaxed and calm and able to cope. Our flight and fight and freeze responses sometimes take us into sort of hypervigilance or hyperactivity or shutting down type of activity. So when stress is prolonged, that can sort of cause us to have anxiety. That can be chronic. And then on the other side of the coin, low mood and depression and those other things that you can see there. So what we want to try and do is manage things so that we don't spend too much time in those other positions. So what can we do to relieve stress? So all the things that you talked about earlier are contained in here, and that's good because you've heard them already. But at Compass, we kind of break them down into three things. Things you can do in the moment, the kind of regular and routine things that you can do to keep on top of things and to improve things. And then longer term things that you can deal with, perhaps external stresses and the bigger things that are ongoing, a little bit like what James was talking about earlier. So in the moment, we like to talk about grounding techniques where you use your 5 senses to just kind of ground you, connect you with the present, and help us to distract us from ruminating on things that have been happened in the past, or worries that you have about what's going to happen next. And these grounding techniques take practice, but find something that's useful for you. I think somebody also said it's different for everybody. So there are some options here and some ideas, and you'll have your own ideas about what you do in the moment. I think somebody mentioned about Lorraine, was it waking up in the morning and having a stretch and doing some exercises? Those kind of things can be really helpful just to get us over that initial sort of stress or anxiety. And they also, with more serious things, they can also help with just bringing us back from flashbacks or dissociation. So there's a blank slide. Why is that? I think I have to click on the things. These are just some examples, so I'll bring them all up. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got distraction techniques. We've got trying to focus on one thing. We've got breathing techniques, having a stretch, trying to, sometimes we say if you just very quickly try and note down 5 things you can see, 5 things that you can hear, 5 things that you can smell, and so on, can just break us from that moment when we're feeling a little bit overwhelmed. And there's other examples I'm sure that you've got and that you've already spoken about. So grounding techniques are good in the moment. Then we've got a slide here on self-care. Some of these things might be quite challenging to think about, especially things like saying no. But they're important to consider because these are the things that can help us with some of the stressful things that are there all the time, as opposed to things that just crop up, like being stuck in traffic or missing the train, as I did this morning. So things to try and practice and develop, taking a step back. Sometimes it's about connecting with others, and sometimes it's about staying at home. It depends on what you need on a certain day, but the emphasis is on the term self-care, looking after yourself. What do you need to do? So these are things that we try and build into our routine and make part of our lives that can help us manage stress when it comes along. I've also put down there challenging negative thinking, which is a cognitive behavioural therapy technique. More simply, just asking yourself questions about your thoughts and putting them on trial. And there will be a handout that you will receive that will go through some of these questions. So try and challenge why you're thinking negatively, and that can help turn things around. And I've also put there, remind yourself of the positives. a useful little exercise, even in a day when there's been a lot of stress and you're feeling stressed perhaps towards the end of the day, there's a little exercise that you can do called the 3 good things. And it's a way of just practicing thinking about what the small positives might be in each day that can just help us feel a bit better about ourselves and what we're facing. Again, these things are easy to say and harder to do, but you know, practicing and starting small can help. Some more things, you know, to build into our routine, and you'll do these already and you've already shared them, and that's great. We like to promote, obviously being kind to yourself is quite hard, but important to do. Give yourself a break. Most of the time you're doing a great job, and it's important to remember that. Staying connected to positive relationships. Some of us have difficult relationships, and it's a very big deal, and it's a hard thing to manage. By trying to find people that you trust and people that you enjoy being around, whether it's face-to-face or online or on the telephone. Or in groups or more informally, that's a really important thing. And we know that you know, being connected with others is a really important protective factor for mental health. Relaxing, obviously, we're very busy and we've got lots of things to do. And somebody said there's stress coming at us all the time on the news, and that can make us feel overwhelmed. So trying to step away from some of those regular things that provide stress and just relax, whatever it is that you like to do. Someone mentioned reading, you know, listening to music and so on is really good. Sleeping well, again, it's really easy to say that and harder to do, but trying to work out what you can do to make a change if you're not sleeping well. Sleep's really important and has such an important role for our whole bodies. Put there exercise. Someone mentioned exercise. Moving your body can just help lift mood, we know that, and just getting outside, I think, even if it's raining and you've got an umbrella, can sometimes be good. Some well-being things there: yoga, Pilates, mindfulness, whatever you like to do. Just walking is great. Eating healthily, doing something meaningful. So whether that's you know, giving to others or being creative or learning something that can help us just connect with ourselves and feel better about ourselves, and again distract us from the stressful things that we feel like we're not making headway with. And the last little thing there is just balance. So we try and do different things to balance that out, to make sure we're kind of covering all our bases, to you know, a time to rest, a time to sleep, a time to go out and do things, and a time to see people, and making sure it works for us. That's the important thing. Just a little slide there on community and professional support to access, and it's important that if things are going downhill for you, to try and see what can be of assistance in the community sooner rather than later. So I've put down there your GP, talking therapies, crisis support if needed, local services. We know that money and housing and all those things, parenting, as Eva mentioned, all these things are a source of stress for people, and there are services out there that can support you. And there is a handout, I've put there handout 3, which you'll get, which has got some contacts and some links for you to have a look at that might be helpful. Of local things that you can access. There's also lots of websites and apps that you can use to sort of support you with stress and anxiety and your well-being. And I've just put there, what do you know of? And some people have mentioned some things already, and you can share with each other today or another day things that you know of that work. And again, on that handout, I've put some things there that you can pursue that we've found useful, and people who've come along to Compass have said have been useful. So longer term management of stress. This picks up a bit about what James was talking about, trying to develop our self-awareness and think about predicting what might go wrong, how you're going to react to it, thinking about maybe how you've dealt with it in the past, which has worked, and maybe thinking about how you dealt with it in the past that didn't work. So maybe try something else that you've read about or someone's mentioned, or that you would like to try. And when we're feeling not so stressed and calm, think about these things and put these plans in place. That's the idea. And we put there practice, practice, practice. And so that when you are in a time of need, that you might be able to respond in a way that's more helpful to yourself, and keeps you in a better place. And of course, just have a review of that. Did it work? Should I try something else? Goes back to what we were saying earlier about being aware of what your body's doing also, and when, and you know, things that you're feeling and thinking that it could be a sign that things are, that the stress is, you know, not just something that you're going to be able to manage, but if it is hanging around for too long. Self-awareness is important to try and develop. Many of you probably have very good self-awareness anyway, if not all of you. So again, what do I want to change? What do I need to do to achieve this? Problem-solving steps can help, and this is just one example of a problem-solving process. I think James mentioned about how do we perceive problems, thinking about things as a problem that we can have some influence over. So some steps there: defining the problem, thinking about it, what solutions might there be, what solution will work for me, what resources do I need to help me resolve this, plan that out. Start small and get help if needed. So that's just an example of a problem-solving process that you can then use. That there's plenty of others. And here's the circle of influence, which a few of you mentioned earlier, about changing the things that you can change and trying to let go of the things you can't. There are things that we're concerned about, but we can't necessarily change. We've put there other people's behaviour, for example, and what others think, and also what we've done in the past. We can't change any of that. That's all happened, or it's out of our control. You know, some of the big problems in the world that we hear about on the news, we can't necessarily change. We can perhaps, you know, have an influence on those in a small way by making choices about what we buy or what we do, or what we recycle, or what we donate money to, or what we help, you know, where we help. But generally speaking, there's lots of things that we can't necessarily influence, but we're concerned about focusing on the things that we can change. So in the center of the circle, we have my actions, who I listen to, what I say, what I read, my attitude and my choices. So that might be a useful little diagram to help us when we're thinking about making bigger changes and addressing bigger stresses in our lives. But also the day-to-day things, as somebody mentioned about the traffic, and it's true that you can't do anything about that. I can't do anything about my train that was late. So just trying to remind yourself that that's the case, and that the sort of stress you're feeling about that will pass, because the next train will come or the traffic will ease in a minute. And as difficult as that is sometimes, that, you know, what's the worst thing that's going to happen there, and trying to just reframe that a bit and think about all the positive times that you've got through the traffic well, and the trains come on time, for example. Just one last thing on longer term management of stress. with the problem solving process, there's also what we like to do at Compass is think about goal setting and setting ourselves small tasks to achieve in order to then take on bigger tasks, rather than just thinking, oh, I've got all these things I want to do. What can I actually put down and have in concrete form that I can think about and achieve. So it can make change easier. So short-term goals can then build into larger ones, because if we achieve a small goal that we've set ourselves, that gives us a sense of achievement and some confidence and motivation to go on to the next thing. So the messages always start small, review and adapt what you're doing, and use the SMART steps, capital SMART, which is try and be specific, try and set a goal that's measurable. So for example, instead of saying I'm going to go to bed earlier, I'm going to go to bed at 10 o'clock tonight. So make it measurable so that you can, these are the questions on the side. How do I know when I've done it? Make sure it's achievable. So is it likely something I can achieve, or is that something that I might achieve further down the track with more resources? Is it relevant to me? Is it something that I need to do now and that I care about and will make a difference to me? And when am I going to do it? So try and work out, is it a goal for today, this morning, for the week, for the month? Again, short-term goals are good things to start with, and try and just see if you can achieve all of those categories for the goal that you have. And the final thing I've put there, and it's your goal. Who wants me to do this, me or someone else? And we come across this a lot at Compass. If people have been to other services and they might have had something suggested to them, and it's not really what they want to do. So it's very important that this is about you and what you want to do, not what others think you should do and told you what you should do. Others' expectations can be very stressful to us. They're not easy to necessarily deal with, but it's important to remember that, as someone earlier said, that it's about what you want to do and what's important for you and what's going to help you. And that's all I've got to say. That was a quick whiz through, but as I said, if you've got any thoughts on that, you can get in touch with me or anybody else here in the group to talk through that, and think about that in your own time, and connect up in the talking sessions. As Esther so eloquently said earlier, that's really important. Talking about stuff is always going to help. It's just talking to the right people and people that you feel supportive. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Thank you for that and going through, the stress slides. I've learned something about SMART, which is good. I like that, because I think it's one of those things. I think that's a normal in work. You've got to have measurable, outputs. And instead of your good example, instead of saying just going in early, it's early is what time, then it makes you committed, then it makes you feel like, you're committed to something, which is really good. I just want to invite anybody with any reactions or something to that, or anything anybody wants to add or comment on. No, I think everybody is happy with that, Fiona. Very well done. I think everybody is self-aware, as you said, and also they have the techniques, which is really, really good. I think Angelina was saying this is very timely. Angelina, I wonder how you found it, because you're like, oh, just bumped into this conversation. Is that any good? Is there anything you learned that you didn't?
Apparently, I saw it's like I'm in Otulivu, so I usually miss when I get on. It's either it has just finished or it's about an hour ago. But today I wasn't even looking for it. I was just kind of like going through my phone And then I saw to leave, and I said, oh yeah, let me just check. And then I saw it, which was good enough.
Brilliant. Thank you
Yeah.
for that.
But
Great.
it's
Yeah.
been wonderful, because at least it's also been part of my stress relief today.
Yeah. Fiona, I like that bit about predicting your behavior in a situation. Yeah, sometimes you are taking unawares. What do you do? And you have to react. So that's a difficult bit. Something that you are not prepared for. You are taken by surprise and you need to respond. So you can't say, oh, wait, let me predict my behavior. You have to do something.
Yes,
That's
yes,
a
of
difficult
course.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
it's
what do
all
you
easy to say and it's harder to do, but it's just good sometimes to have these things to think about and work out what's right for you. And I think you've all said it, that you've got your own practices that help you to get through life, and taking time to develop those, and will stand you in good stead. I think I meet lots of people, and I've worked in the past with lots of people who are rushing around, and you do have to rush around because that's life. But if you don't kind of pay attention to those other things, then it'll always be that sort of unplanned reaction rather than drawing on things that you've used in the past and your resources, and they won't be at the forefront. But yeah, it's good to think about these things.
In agencies, what do you do? Yeah, you turn the tap on and the whole place is flooded, so you have to react to something.
Yeah. Well, if that happens, you'll then remember what you need to do to make sure that doesn't happen again. So hopefully it won't happen the next time. But I am a repeat offender of doing things like that, and I get so annoyed and stressed with myself, and then I think, well, you know what, just stop and slow down, and maybe that's why it keeps happening. So that's something that I certainly take on board. Yeah. Thanks, Grace. Thanks, Angelina, too. It's really nice when you think, oh, well, I'm just flipping through my phone and then I found something that reminded me that I could do that this morning. So it's, fantastic. We always think, I always think I spend too much time sliding up and down my phone, but sometimes it can bring positive. So thanks.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Grace. James, I can see your hand up.
Really adding to what Fiona has said, and also the addition that Grace made, I think in any emergency situation, I think our attention will go back to Fiona's earlier slides talking about fight and flight and all of those things. There are so many other additions to talk about. Freezing or appeasing, those are the two additional ones. So the main one that we all are aware of is either fight or run away. But sometimes we subdue, we also plead, we become very inactive, very numb in the face of crisis or calamity, you name it. I think what actually adding to what Fiona said is really about catching your thoughts, because our thinking can make us do things. They can also make us feel the way we feel. If you are in this emergency situation and your core belief is that, oh, this is going to overcome me, this is damaging, the flood is going to destroy my house. So that panic alone is going to make you very inactive. So you need to step back, and I think to catch the thoughts, you actually check it out. What is this thinking telling me? Is it saying that I can't do this or I can do it? And if the answer is I can do it, how can I do it? But if the thinking is I cannot do this, but what can you do? If you cannot, who can do it? So that's where you comb through your insurances and everything and checking. If you have to go to the A&E, you go. So that's the time you have taken to make those judgments. So that delay is nothing that is going to waste your time. It's going to be productive. But it also builds on top of how you are able to catch that thought, because thoughts can be very, very powerful. It can also be brought about by behavior. and also the way you feel, and even how your body is also responding. So those 4 mechanisms at every given time are important. Are you becoming more anxious? Is your breathing becoming more fast? Is your heart rate becoming more faster? And what is that telling you? Are you thinking that maybe you're going to faint or something's going to wrong with you? That can also speed up the behavior that you demonstrate. That can also stress you. So we need to look at every given time how these 4 mechanisms are activating. And I think Fiona mentioned about using all the senses that you have, you know, the feel, the touch, what are you hearing? What are you thinking? And all of those things can really help. I just want to add that bit, but they're all really interconnected, and our cyber tigers today are not the one that our forebearers or the cavemen suffer. Today, the traffic light, your friends, COVID, these are all our, cyber tigers that are causing us either to run away or to fight. So we need to understand that somebody digging up your road is going to cause you stress. But how do you navigate? How do you walk around that? So my little road here had resurfacing sometimes back. So I moved my car to another place. So I used to walk there and then go to work. So if I hadn't done that, I would have been blocked in, and that would have caused me a lot of stress. So pre-planning, being smart, using all your smart acronyms can really help. But Fiona, thank you so much for adding to what has been a very lovely morning.
Thanks, James. And yeah, you put that really well. I've got a handout on catching the thoughts, and I didn't slot it in, but I will send that to Eva, and you can send it on with the other stuff if you like. And it might be just a good reminder and a little process for people to have a look at. But yeah, just taking that minute to stop and think. Catching the thoughts, a nice way to put it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you. That's been a really good session. Unless anybody else wants to say something. Thank you for that, James. That's been really good. So we're going to get the, oh, yes, Grace is on. Yes,
where do we, those of us who are not in Reading, how do we get this handouts?
I will send it to you, Grace. I will send it to you via email.
Right. Thank you.
And if I can maybe also print some for you and send it to you via post.
Okay, that would be lovely. Yeah, thank you.
I will do that. I will do that for you. Yeah. And as also Fiona said, there's such a good supplement on things of every single day before you go to bed. What are the 3 good things you've done, so that you can just check what's happening in your mind. Because as James alluded to, your mind, it's very important to see and evaluate what's going on. So thank you for that, Fiona. Just a few announcements. Of course, we have our drop-in every Tuesday at 11:30 to 1, which is tea and coffee at the Hub. If you're free, please do come in. We were just talking about gardening earlier with Fiona and saying, so our garden, our allotment, Utilivu Garden has a few produce as well. So from Monday, I'll be posting to show what we have available, and everybody can come in and pick as they wish. So that would be really good. And if you want to come and get involved, then you can come in and we can do the garden normally on Fridays. Well, but not tomorrow. Tomorrow we have the culturally tailored mental health training, the 2nd session. So if you're in that session, please do log on to that session. But we'll have the produce on Tuesday here for people to collect. Apart from that, I'm going to say thank you very much. Thank you to our speaker, Fiona. Thank you to everybody who's come for our meeting. And yeah, I hope to see you next Thursday. And I see Grace, I can see your hand. Oh, you're on mute, Grace.
Last week, you said James would give us a takeaway. We missed last week. James.
Oh, James, people still want to take away from you. So
for last week. James. Yeah.
I think it's been a powerful presentation from Fiona. And I think for me, the takeaway really is around those connectivities, because our well-being is actually reliant on what do we find pleasure in when we do it. Yeah. And if you're not really finding any pleasure in things that you do, you need to check what is it that is wrong with either you or that particular activity. Are you totally connected, or are you engaged, or are you doing it just because somebody have asked you to do it? or you don't have the time, or it's not your priority that day because your mind might be thinking about something else.
Yeah.
So that will be something we need to capture this week. Am I really finding pleasure in what I'm doing? And also, you need to look at what have you achieved. I think Fiona mentioned about the outcome. And everything you do should have an outcome. And when we focus on ourselves, it's not vanity, it is actually sanity, because sometimes we forget ourselves. And I think there was a place where Fiona's slides talk about boundaries. How good are we at our own boundaries? Do we allow our boundaries to be pushed and pushed and pushed, and why? And I think Eva mentioned about her children, sometimes they push boundary, but she pushed back or she pushes back. And it's really about how do you manage. And I think boundary is not punishment. It's not like rejection, it is respect. I respect you for what you like, and you respect me for what I like, and then we work together. And the other bit really is about connectivity. Do you belong to a community, your family, your friends, and everything? So all activities that we do should bear those three phenomena, if you like. Pleasurable, if there's something achieved, it did make me connect to my community, my society, my family, or even myself. Did you look after yourself? Self-care is not just about being selfish, it's really good. Because if you don't self-care, then it can be difficult for you to really have a well-being that you like. Because self-care is about all of those activities, you know, going for a walk, good diet, good exercise, connecting, learning, and all of those things can really make you feel that you are on top of things. Stress, as Fiona said, is part of us, but we need to control it. And fear can always stand in the way. And fear is nothing like something a scientist has made that is coming to create problem for you or drop from the sky. Fear is what we actually create. We can break it down. We create fear from our thinking, oh, this is going to be too much for me. And I think was Esther that said, I need to deprioritize. So what if I don't clean my house this week? What will be so bad about it? So we need to ask some of those questions. Some of us, we don't. You know, what will be so bad if I don't go do shopping now? You know, except if you need a food. But what would be so bad if I don't do this particular task and then prioritize this one? So it's really important. So for me, those are my tips for you this week. But let's see next week who is coming to say, well, there was a pleasurable activities that I did, or I did something that really made me feel that I have achieved something, or I did something that actually made me think that I really connected to people or my immediate family or my community. So on that note, I would like to say goodbye and have a lovely week.
Thank you, James.
Thank you for that.
Well, Eva, don't forget last week you promised us last week's takeaway today. So that's what I reminded you of.
Thank you. Thank you very much
for James. So let him prepare for that. I'm looking forward to that next week.
Thank you for reminding me and see how many good tips we got from today. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, everybody, and I wish you a happy afternoon, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Lovely to meet you. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. It was good, Fiona. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Lovely to meet you.
Yeah, and you too. Bye-bye. God bless.
God bless everyone.